Welcome back to our Beatrice YouTube channel. In today's class, we'll learn how to make this beautiful overbust Victorian corset. So it has a basque effect at the waistline and it's very simple to make. If this is what you like to learn, kindly stay tuned till the end of this tutorial. Thank you. So to draft this Victorian corset or overbust corset, I already drafted this pattern. So this is just a simple basic bodice with shoulder and waist bustier that. So the shoulder, the bust that was transferred to the shoulder. So this is the original pattern, and I've done this severally on the channel. So if you don't know how to do it, you may want to check out the pattern I have on my basic bodice. Everything is stated there. So the only difference is just the dart leg. In this case, I extended this 1 inch dart leg all the way to the M line, which is the hip line. As you can see that we just closed it here 2 inches before the hip line. But in this case, I just took the 1 inch dart because I took a dart of 1 inch on the under bust on the waistline, and then I extended it to the lower part also. So whatever shortage that I may have here, I've added it back to the side. So now we have this pattern. Now the next thing is for us to start drafting. So the first thing I'm going to do now is to connect this. That's to know the height of the shape that this upper part of my corset is going to take. So to know this now, I'm just going to, like I normally do if you watch most of my videos, I'm going to take the difference between my bust point. So the first thing is to note your bust point, which is here. Okay, so after noting my bust points, now I'm going to be taking the difference between my bust points and my under bust, and as you can see, we have 3.5 inches there. So now the 3.5 inches, I'm going to take my pencil, because normally we should use a pencil to draft so that if you make any mistake you can easily correct it. But because this is a tutorial and for us to see it well, that is why I'm using marker. So I'm just going to use this, and this that I'm drafting is really not part of the tutorial. I just want to use it as a guide to shape my neckline. So I'm just going to be using a pencil, then I'll clean it off later. So now I'm just taking the 3.5 inches round like that, then I'll circle it. So I already did that. I'm just going to make the circle border so that we can see it, okay, on this side and then on this side. So after that, now you can decide how deep you want this corset to be. So for me, around 9 inches is okay from the upper part. So here now or you can just use your bust point as a guide. So you can just do 1 inch above your bust point. So this is the bust point here, and the bust point I worked with here is 10 inches. So 1 inch above the bust point is still the 9 inches that I intend to use. So if you measure 1 inch above your bust point, you'll have something like this. So let me use marker for this. Okay, so what I'm doing now is connecting my bust, connecting my overbust shape. So this neckline is going to be a sweetheart neckline. So what I'm going to do now is to connect this from that point to my dart leg here, and then I already have that shape to guide me. Okay, so I have this here, and then because this is going to be a tube, so we are not going to be having any armhole area here. So on this side also, I'm just going to blend in what I have here from where my dart leg stop, because this has to be equal because we are still going to sew it back. So now here I'm just going to look for a smooth curve now, and then just blend this in. Okay, so after blending it in, I don't want any sharp edge, so I'm just going to blend everything out so that it will look really nice there. So that is what I'm trying to do here. Okay, so I have my overbust corset like that, and that is what the shape is going to look like. So if you're going to be adding a yoke to this upper part here becomes our yoke. So you just need to close this part now, and when you close it, let me just try to close it so that we'll see what I'm talking about. So once you close this, you can see that the lines matches. So this part here that you see, you cut it out and that becomes your yoke. But we'll still leave that now and go over to start drafting our corset. So because this is a Victorian corset, the major difference that we have from the regular corset that we do is that Victorian corset normally have various darts. So you can have as many darts as you want actually, but I'm just going to be having like 2 darts on this. So I have this one, then I'm going to create another one on the side pattern. So to create this dart now on my waistline, I'm going to measure what I have there. So I have 6 inches there, and then I'm going to divide that into 2. So that's going to give me 3 inches. So the 3 inches that I have there, I'm going to make it into a straight line. So let me just use the pencil for this first. I can decide to just make my straight line from my hemline here upwards like this, if that is what you want, or you can just try to tilt it towards your armhole area, okay, so that it will be a bit bent, then you have something going in this direction. So it depends on what you want, but I'm just going to be maintaining this straight line, so I'll just make it bolder there. Okay, so now we have another dart line there. So the next thing now is to start taking our darts from the waistline. So now this depends entirely on what you're aiming to do. So I'll be using this opportunity to teach us how to cinch our waist. Okay, so now on this part, depending on how if you want, if you normally want to cinch your waist, what you are aiming to achieve is that hourglass shape. And to do this, you need to reduce your waist measurement so that it will force the waist to compress, so that that shape can come out. But in doing this also, you have to be very careful, because at the same time, you don't want this to be too uncomfortable for the person that is going to wear it. So in everything you're doing, you have to make it moderate. So the 1 inch dart that we took here has already been added back, because that is our actual pattern. So whatever dart that I start to take from here now is me cinching the waist, which means I'm trying to reduce the size of the waist, so that by the time the person is wearing it and they are lacing the corset, the waist will be going inwards, then that shape that you're aiming to get will come out. So now if I decide to take half inch on both sides for this, it means I've taken out 1 inch from my waist. So, and remember, this is on fold, so it means on one side of the center front I'm taking out 1 inch, and then on the other side of the center front I'm taking out another 1 inch. That is minus 2 inch from my waist. So if I intend to do this for the back also, you can imagine how much I've taken out. So if you're not okay with that, if you think that is too much, you can decide to add back this 1 inch on the sides, or you can just take half inch. Okay, you can just take half. Okay, so in this case I'm just going to be taking 3/4 of an inch, that's 0.25 from each side. Okay, because I don't want it too much, so I'm taking 0.25 from here, and then I'm taking 0.25 from here also, which means I've taken out half an inch. 0.25 from across, 0.25 is half an inch, and then I'm going to connect that. Okay, so I've taken that out now, and then again I want to further cinch this waist. That was why I decided not to take full half inch here. On this, each of these dart leg now, I'm going to be taking another 0.25 on both legs of this dart. So here now on the waistline, I'm going to take 0.25 here also, and then on this side again I'm going to take another 0.25. okay, and then I'm going to connect this to the under bust like this, and then to 2 inches before my hip line. So the same thing here now, I'll connect this and this. So now I've taken a total of 1 inch. 0.25 plus 0.25 here is half an inch. 0.25 plus 0.25 here is also half an inch. So this is a total of 1 inch. Okay, so I'm also on the center front here, I want to have like that inside effect, like you know how that center front will just go in like that to further give you that hourglass shape. So I'm going to take another dart there, which means that my center front is going to be divided into 2 pieces. So here now I'll take another 0.25 Okay, instead of 0.25 you can take half an inch like I said, but this entirely depends on the style that you want to get and what your customer can take. Okay, so if your customer really wants that cinchin and you know it's not be too uncomfortable for the person, you can do half inch instead of the 0.25 that I'm doing here. So now I have successfully taken out 1.5 from this half of the center front. Remember, this is just half scale of the center of the front bodice. We'll have another half on this side, so I've taken 1.5. that's half 1 plus 0.25. okay, it's not up to 1.5. I took half here, I took half for these two also, that's 1, then 1.25. so if you multiply that by 2 for the other side of the front, that's going to give you just 2.5 inches. So I've taken out 2.5 inches from the okay, so now I've taken out 2.5 inches from the front like I was saying. If you want to take more from the back also, you can do it. And like I was saying, assuming I was taking out half inch for each of these, that it means I would have taken out half for this, that is 1, half for this, that is 2, then half for this, that is half, that's 2.5. then multiply by the other half that I'm going to have for the front, that would have been 5 inches. And there is likelihood that I will take at the back again, that's going to be too much. So let's say your waist is around 30 inches, then if I'm taking 5 inches from the front, that's 25 inches already, which I feel is too much. So that is why I did this. And if you don't want to shrink your waist and you have taken this, that another thing you can do is whatever that you have taken here, you can just go to the side and then add it back. But because of the waist cinching that we're doing here, I'm just going to leave it as it is now, and then I'm going to work on the lower part. So depending on what you want, if you want it to be like this, you can leave it like that. But if you want it to have that kind of Basque effect, so from the waistline here, I'm just going to go. So now you can, from your waistline, you can go down by 4 inches or 5 inches depending on how deep you want that effect to be. So here I'm just going to be going down by maybe 4.5 inch, and then from there now I'm going to connect it. So you can either connect it in a straight form that is going to be sharp like this, or just use the slightly curved part of your ruler. So I'm just going to connect it like this to give me that Basque effect that I want. Then I'll cut out this front piece. Okay, so for your Victorian corset, you may have so many dart lines. It doesn't have to be just this. What you just need to do is to keep dividing. So if you want more pieces, you just measure what you have here, divide this by 2, then you can have another dart line here. Also here, if you want more, you can just measure what you have here, divide it by 2, and then you have another dart line here. But let me just shade out what I'm going to cut out so that you will not be confused. So all these shaded parts that I'm shading, they are all going off. Okay, on the center front also I'll be cutting this off, and then on this side also I'll be taking out these darts. Okay, so now we're going to cut this, and then like I said, if you're going to be using a yoke for this upper part just becomes your yoke. And to do this, you just need to close these darts. So you close the dart that you have here, and then you take your scissors now, and then you cut this out. So using your masking tape, you just need to hold that place together. Okay, okay, so this becomes your yoke. You just need to hold this place together now, and then you cut out your neck point. So sorry, we have this now as our yoke, and close this. So I'm just going to set this aside because this is not going to be having any yoke, and then I'm going to cut out what I have here. So remember this Basque effect that we created, which is actually not compulsory. If you want, it's fine. And then this now is my actual pattern, so I'm just going to be cutting this off now. But before I cut it off, because this is going to be in smaller pieces and they may look like each other, they may resemble each other, so I'm just going to be labeling this the center front, I'll label this the middle front, and then I'll label the side front, so that by the time I cut it I'll not be confused. And then here on the lower part here, you may want to put like an arrow there, so that it will show you that this is the lower part. Then on the side fronts here also, because they may look like each other, I'm going to indicate that this point is the part that I'm going to be sewing to the middle front, so that I don't get confused. So I'm going to cut this out now. Okay, so this is our pattern now for the front, and if you're going to be adding a yoke to this, so this is what your yoke is going to look like. So by the time you join it together, you have this, and then you just add your yoke like this. Okay, so now we'll set this aside now and work on the back. Okay, so for the back, it's quite simple. We have our regular back panel like this, and then we have our normal dart. So I did this in pencil because I don't want to maintain this dart. So I have a 1-inch dart here already, and then the 1 inch that I have here, I already added this back to this side, so I don't have any shortage on this, and I've not done any shunting on this so far. But bear in mind that for our front bodies, we already took out 2.5 from the total waist measurement. So whatever it is that you want to do on the back, you should bear that in mind. So now I can decide to maintain the dart that I have here, and then create another dart on the side here by just dividing what I have here by 2. But I just want something uniform, so instead I'm going to be cleaning up this dart. Then I'll measure what I have here on my waist, and then I'm going to divide it by 3, so that I can have 3 equal halves. So I've cleaned up this dart now, and then what I'm going to do now is to measure what I have here, and then I'm going to divide it by 3. So I have around 10 inches here. So the 10 inches divided by 3 is going to give me around 3.3. So I'm just going to mark that like that, and then I will make them into a straight line. But before I do that, I'm going to shape my neckline first. So what I'm just going to do now is just to have like a V shape on this neckline, and then I'm going to measure the depth that I want. Usually is low, so here I'm going to measure like 10 or 9.5 inches. I went down by 10 for the front, so by 9 for the front. I'm just going to be doing 10 inches for the back, and then from there I'm just going to connect it straight down to my armhole line. Okay, you can see what I have there. So if this is not low enough for you, you can just go down by maybe another 1 inch, and then you take your ruler and then connect it to your armhole line like this. So I think this is fine for me. So now I'll connect this dart that I have divided, and then I'm going to make it a straight line up to where my neckline stops. Okay, so this is the second one. I'm just going to confirm what I have there. Okay, and then I'll make it into a straight line also. Okay, so here now remember that I have 1 inch dart that is not a shortage. So this dart now I can decide to take half here one, half here one, which means if I'm taking this other half that I'm taking now is not part of my main bodice. So this is me changing the waist also, or I can just add it back, or instead of taking half the 1 inch that I have there, I can just do quarter of an inch, which is half, quarter of an inch, which is half, which means this is a total of 1 again, and I'm not taking anything. So the only thing that I've done is what I have done in front, which is minus 2.5 inches. So the actual waist that I'm working with is 30 inches, like I said, and I don't want this to be too much. Okay, so the 2.5 inches that I've taken in front minus that 30 inches is going to give me around 27.5. So I've reduced the waist successfully to 27.5, which is fine for me. So now I'm not going to be taking anything at the back. So the 1 inch that I have that is already in my pattern is what I'll be sharing for this dart at the back, which is fine for me. So if you think you can, or maybe I can just add maybe half an inch here, so that it will be, or quarter of an inch. So if I had quarter of an inch here on both sides, it's going to be half an inch, and if I had a half to what I've taken at the front, it's going to give me a total of 3, which is still fine for me. So now here I'm just going to be doing a quarter of an inch each on both sides, and then here also I'm going to be doing a quarter of an inch, and then I'm going to make that into my new dart. So connect these 2 inches before your hip line and then connect this back. So that's the first dart, and then I'm going to do this for the second dart also. So with this now, I've not taken anything from my back. I have half inch here, which is a total of 1 inch, and which is what I have taken, which is what I have cleaned off here, which was already added to my pattern already. So if I want to take anything extra here, I can just do a quarter of an inch at this center back also here, and then connect it. And then you know this is just half scale of the back, so by the time I do for the other one also, that's going to be half quarter plus quarter, which is just half an inch that I've taken from the back. And then if I add that half inch to the 2.5 that I've taken from the front, that's going to give me a total of 3 inches deduction. And if I deduct that from my actual waist measurement, that's 27, which is still fine for me. I hope we understand this. So now if you want to put a zipper at the back of this, you just maintain this your line, and then this is going to be your zipper allowance. But for me, I prefer to do a lacing there so that it will even help you to drag it. And so to create that lacing at the back, at the center back here, remember I said I'm going to be taking 1 inch away from the back. Okay, so I'll take 1 inch on the upper part, I'll take 1 inch on the hem, but on the waistline I'm going to be taking 1 inch. I'll take 1 inch in addition to the quarter of an inch that I want to remove from here also. So I'll take 1 inch and quarter here, and then I'm going to connect this. So please just pay attention to this. It's very simple, it's not difficult. So this also is going to go off. So the last thing to do at the back now is the basque effect that we created. Okay, so for that basque effect, remember from our waist we came down by 4.5 inches. So here also I'm going to go down by 4.5, and then I'm going to connect this to that point like that. And now I can cut this out, but before I cut it, just like I did for the front, I'm going to label this center back, middle back, and side back. Okay, and then here I'm going to indicate that this is where it goes down, which is the M line. And then here you can indicate this at the side where the center back is. Then here you note that this is where you had your center back and middle back too. So just do something that will assist you in knowing this, because especially the back may look very similar. So now after doing this, now I'm going to cut this out, and then this part becomes your yoke. That's if you're going to be adding a yoke to this. So this upper part here becomes your yoke. You can cut it on your net fabric or whatever fabric that you desire to use for this. Okay, so now the next thing is to cut this out. So after cutting this out, now we'll go over and cut it out on our fabric. Remember, we are not using a zipper for this, so all this is going off. Okay, this is going off, and then we'll cut our basque waistline, which I said is not compulsory depending on the shape that you're going for. So this now is our back panel, and then I'm just going to cut off all these darts that I have here. So now we've reduced this waist. Okay, we've reduced this waist from 30 to 27 inches, which is fine. If you want it to reduce more, I have told us what we need to do, but you need to be very careful so that it will not be too uncomfortable for the person that is going to wear this. Okay, so now I'll take all this to my fabric now and then cut it out on the fabric. So while cutting it on the fabric, I would have half inch round this, so that remember there is a lot of joining going on here. So I'll add half inch for my joining. And then here also I'm going to be adding half inch for my hemming allowance, and then for the side back I'll add half inch or 1 inch depending on how much allowance that you want to leave for your back on your side for joining, because I do not have the same allowance for joining on this pattern. So I'll do all that now and then bring it back so that we'll go over to the machine. Then after doing that, I'm going to prepare my fabric by adding maybe hair stay or gum stay depending on what you want to do. I'll be adding a gum stay to this. I'll use my hand to gum that stay to my fabric. Then after that, we'll take it to the sewing machine and then we'll start to sew. So these are the 3 patterns that I have for my back. This is the center back, this is the middle back, and you can see it looks similar, especially this and this. That is why it is very important for you to label them. And these are the patterns for the front. So I'll go ahead and cut this now and then bring it back to continue. Okay, so now I've cut it out on the fabric. This is the center front, the middle front, and the side front. So before I left, I forgot to make sure that, remember, we did a basque effect, which means we slanted it, and then the dart leg here may not be equal again. So you need to measure to confirm what you have. So you just measure what you have here and then check what you have here, because this may tend to be longer than this. You can see how slanted it came. So you just need to blend that out because you are going to be sewing them together again. So now this is the front and this is for the back. So I'm using the same fabric for the lining and the main fabric. So I just went ahead to cut 4 for each. Okay, so 2 for these 2 sides, then 2 for the lining. So now I also went ahead to add my gum stay to this. You can use hair stay if you want. And then for the cup area, you can decide to double the stay that you're using for that part, or you just go ahead to add a bra cup to it. So now we'll go over to the machine to sew this now. So it's very simple to sew. Basically what we are doing, just like we labeled it. So this is the center front, the middle front, and the side front. I'm just going to be picking them one after the other, then I'll be joining them together. That is what we are doing. So I just show us a little bit of it so that we will see a guide on how you can sew it easily. Okay, so we are on the machine now and I've laid it out. This is the center front, the middle front, and the side front. So now I'm just going to, remember, there is a joining at the center front here. So the first thing I'll do now is to join my center front together. So I'll remove the pins now and then just take it together now and join it on the center front. So I'm working with just the lining first. Sorry, the main fabric, then I'll sew the lining later. So I'll match it together. I'll make sure they are equal, and then I'm going to sew with half-inch allowance. So I forgot to make sure that I added half-inch allowance. Then for the side, I extended my allowance by 1 inch because I don't have same allowance on the pattern before. For others, I just added half-inch allowance round. So now I'm going to be showing by the half-inch allowance that I have. I don't have power presently, so I just dabbed a gum on my stick. That's why it's not staying together like that. And my inverter cannot carry my iron. Okay, so this is the center front now. I've joined it together. So the next thing now is to work on the middle front. So the middle, I'm just going to remove my pins and then I'll immediately set how it's going to be aligned. So this is how it's going to be aligned. You may want to trim off this excess so that you have exactly your fabric, and it will be easier for you to work with. So I'm just trimming off the excess stay that I have there. Then after that, I'm going to join it together. Okay, so now that the stay is trimmed off, I still have some here. Okay, so now it's trimmed. You can see this two middle fronts. So you just take the one that goes with each and then you sew it. So I can tell to sew from the upper part here because they are exactly each the same thing on both sides. So I'm just going to pin it like that and then I'll start to sew. Now I'm sewing by 1/2 inch. Just look at it so you can see what we have here. You just match each other and then you sew it. Okay, so these are the two side fronts and this is the bust area. So like I said, you can decide to double this bust area. You can decide to double the stay, or you just use a bracket for it. So on the other side now, I'm going to do the second side also, and I'm going to sew from the upper part also. So because there is no light to iron this stay, that's why it's looking this strong. Okay, so when you are doing it, just iron your stay, paper stay or gum stay or whatever stay that you decide to use. Iron it to it very well before you start to sew. Just continue sewing it. I don't want this video to be too long, and we just end it. So the same way we are sewing the front is the same way we're going to be sewing the back also. You just lay it out and then pick it one after the other, especially for the back because they may look very similar. So you don't rush it, just take it one after the other and then you sew. So you can see the hem also, it matches. So your hem line have to match. Once you check it just the way I explained. So now we've done this also now. So we have our center front like this. So the next thing is to take the side front also. So this, I noted this as the one that the part that I'm sewing to the middle front. So I'll just remove the pins, and once I remove the pins, I'm just going to notice like this. So this goes with this and this goes with this, and then I'll take it to the sewing machine now, and then I'm going to sew it. So that is how you join everything. Okay, so now I've sewn it and the two side fronts have been joined, and this is what we have for the front. Okay, so now we move over to the back, and this is what the hem is looking like. So you can see that they are all equal on the hem line. So now we leave this now and move to the back. So just the way I did center back, middle back, side back, you just take them one after the other now and sew. So in this case now I added 1 inch extra to my side back, and then I noted this part, that this is the part that I'm going to sew to my middle back. So now I'll take it one after the other and sew because I don't want this video to be too long. Okay, so now this is the center back, the middle back and the side back. So you just take it one after the other. I'll take this and then the middle back. So now you note this is the part that will be laced, this is the part that will be joined to the middle back. So like I said, you just take it one after the other, put it back, and then you take this also, put it back. Then you know you are joining this to this. So if you do it one after the other like that, you will not be confused because they look very similar to each other. So once you take it now, you take it straight to the machine and then you sew. So you keep sewing it. Okay, so the center back and the side back have been joined now. This is the first one. So we have this now. So the next one now is to join the last one, which is the side back to it, and this is the part that you're going to be joining to your middle back. Okay, Okay, so this is one of the backs now. So now I'm just going to take my center front now and then add it to the side front. So that is how you do it. So the same thing that I've done here now, I'm going to repeat it for the other side of the back. So I just want to take everything together so that I can do that off camera. So on the side, I'm just going to join the side by the 1-inch seam allowance that I left. Okay, so this is what I have. Now I'm going to do the rest of camera, then I'll join the other back to it, then we'll continue with the sewing. Okay, so once you are done joining the two, now this is what you have for the two. I can see the space that we have here is the one inch. Remember, we took at the center back, we took 1 inch from the upper part, we took another 1.5 on the waist area. So now the next thing now is to add boning to this corset. So to add boning to it, you just need to open your seam lines like this, then you iron it really flat. Like I said, I don't have power now, so I'm just going to go ahead and just explain what we need to do. So after opening it now and then you iron it flat, I'm going to be using this regular boning. I can actually sew on it. So you place your boning in between it like this. So for Victorian corset, I just like to add double boning. Instead of using one, I'm just going to be using two for it. So I'll just place one on this side of my seam allowance, and then I'll sew, and then I'll place another one. So I'm not going to be adding a full boning to this for the purpose of this tutorial, but I'm just going to show us one so that we will see what I'm talking about. So this further gives structure to the Victorian corset. Remember, the reason why we're adding this boning in the first place is to give structure to this corset. So instead of just doing one, I'll just leave 1/2 inch upwards here to turn it, and then I'll place my boning now, and then I'll sew on it. So you can actually sew on this boning, but if you're not going to be using a sewable boning like this, if you're using a plastic boning, you can just create channel for your boning. So I have a tutorial on several ways you can add boning to your corset already on the channel, so you may want to check it out if you don't know what we are talking about. So I'll be adding double boning to this. So one will be here and the other one is going to be here. Okay, and then on the center back also here, you should add a boning to this, because remember, we're going to be lacing it and a lot of activity will be going on at the center back. So you just want to place one boning at the center back here also, so that it can strengthen that place. And also, it doesn't even have to, remember we just divided our pattern to 3 pieces, so it doesn't even have to be on the place where you have your dart lines alone. If you want further structuring, you can start to just add boning at any point in time, even if you don't have a dart line there. So now I'll go ahead now and add this boning to this, then we'll turn our corset and then we are done. Okay, so this is the double boning that I was talking about. You just sew it on both sides of the boning to the same allowance that you have there, and this is going to add further structuring for your corset. Okay, so it depends on you. You can decide to do one or you do two. This two works perfectly, so I prefer it. I'm using this black thread because my thread actually finished, so you should use a matching color of thread for this. Okay, so this is what we have now, and I'm just going to stop the boning here. Okay, so this is what the corset channel look like by the time you finish sewing it. Like I said, you should use a matching color of thread. I just use something close, but this is not the exact thread for this. So now the next thing is to turn it. Like I said, I'm not going to be adding boning all through, so I just showed us how it's supposed to be done. So this is my lining, and then I've sewn it the same way I sew my main fabric. So the next thing now is to place my lining on my main fabric, and then you pin it. So these joints have to match, so you can see this, you match all your joints together. So this is the center front, and this is the next one here. So they just have to match each other like that to make your work easy. So once they match, you sew it on the upper part, and then you match the lower part together also, and then you sew before we now turn it. Okay, so I've gone ahead to sew it on the upper part, as you can see, and also on the hemline. Then, like I was explaining, on this center back area, you just had 1 or 2 boning there just to straighten it. So next thing now is to notch this, and then from here I'm going to, from this center back opening here, I'm going to turn it out, and then I'll give it a good press. So on the upper part here, for neatness, when you're sewing it, you can just sew in your hemming gum like this on the upper part. So you add your hemming gum when you are sewing it, then by the time you turn it and iron it, the hemming gum will help to glue them together so that you can achieve a very perfect neckline there. It will be really neat compared to any side of the lining or the main fabric poking out. It will just gum them together for you. Okay, so this is the corset now. I just had it with pins at the back because this is not the actual size. Then this is the boning effect that we did. So you can see this two boning, it just makes it gives it this more structure, and also is also beautiful, as you can see. So this is the Basque effect that we have. You can see it just curves from the waist all the way to the hemline. So if you want more, you just need to extend the length here at the center front so that you can have more curviness at that point. And at this point, I'm here to iron this. You can see that it's rumpled, so like I said, there's no power. So make sure you iron every step of the waist for a neater work and to also make your work easier. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.